Welcome everyone to the Moonshot Technology Innovations for Climate Change with Smallholder Farmers session of the annual learning event this year. My name is John Mundy. I'm the Digital Climate Smart Agriculture Lead for Agrifin. This session is all about digital technologies solving one of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem of our time in climate change. We know right now that climate change is severely impacting smallholder farmers across the world, and especially in Africa. 95% of sub-Saharan African farmers are rain-fed. 13 out of the last 31 years in Kenya has experienced drought. And we know that from the 2030s onwards, yields will progressively decline significantly in these systems. But it's not all doom and gloom. We know that there are wonderful technologies out there. And we're calling this session Moonshot partly because of the effort to land humans on the moon in 1969, and how that spurred, how that created so much innovation globally to help tackle the challenge of spaceflight. In this case, I think we have the technology and people to solve the climate change challenge with smallholder farmers. And many of them are on the panel today. I won't ask them to introduce themselves right now because we're going to go to a video that's pre-recorded, and it will take about 30 minutes where each of our partners are going to present some of the really fascinating things they're doing. And then we're going to go to a live Q&A with the same entrepreneurs and leaders in the field where you can ask your questions about what they're doing. And I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just going to quickly set up the video and then we'll see you in about half an hour.
My name is Winnie Onyango. I'm currently working with Plant Village Kenya in Busia County as a field coordinator. The main aim of Plant Village as an organization is to disseminate information to farmers, to provide extension work, and also to share knowledge concerning new technologies and innovation to enhance productivity.
Kwa majina, naitwa Sauba Juma, kutoka Nangoma Sub-Location, Busia County. Nafanya na Plant Village Nuru kama lead farmer. Plant Village Nuru imenisaidia sana kujua mbegu safi ya kupanda. Wametupea simu ya kukagua mbegu safi ya kupanda. Kwa sababu huko nyuma nilikuwa naenda kwa shamba ya mtu, ile mbegu yenye ametupa kando ya shamba, alafu nabeba hiyo naenda napanda. Kumbe nimebeba magonjwa yenye nimepeleka kwa shamba yangu. Alafu pia sikuwa najua ile kijiti kiwango yenye nastahili nipande. Nilikuwa huko nyuma nashikanisha vijiti vitatu, alafu napanda. Pia natafuta ile nono nikidhani kuwa ile nono ndio itanipea mazao mingi. Kumbe hiyo ilikuwa tu kasibure, kwa sababu ile nono yenye nilikuwa napanda, nikipanda for example akota nieka napata hata korogoro 5 kama imekuwa mingi. Lakini vijiti zingine nilikuwa napata tu bure, hazikuwa zinaweka hata mwogo mmoja. Kwa hiyo Plant Village Nuru imenisaidia sana, nikajua vile naweza panda nipate mavuno mzuri ya kunisaidia.
Nuru is a monitoring tool on pest and disease. A farmer can use the artificial intelligence to diagnose diseases and pest damage on crops, especially maize and cassava. Then it also gives an option of a farmer taking a photo of the damaged part of the crop, sending it to a human expert, and gets information or feedback back if it is other crops apart from maize and cassava.
Hii simu yenye amenipa inanisaidia kwa kukagua magonjwa, yale magonjwa ambayo yameshika mihogo. Nafanyia scouting kwa shamba yangu. Nikifika kwa shamba yangu naenda kwa mihogo kwa stem, alafu nafinya kwa Plant Village.
Please show me the second leaf that does not look healthy from the top of the plant. Press start when the leaf is in focus.
App pia inanisaidia kukagua mimea ingine kama viazi. Kama ni viazi, nakuja na hii simu, alafu naipika tu picha, napika tu hii matawi picha, penye naona iko affected, pengine mdudu ametopoa hii matawi, amekula hii matawi imetoboka, alafu napika picha, alafu natuma. Nikituma tutaletewa ujumbe kwa simu, shida yenye viazi iko nayo, alafu tena vile naweza fanya kucontrol huyo mdudu.
On the homepage of Nuru app, a farmer can also access information about weather that has been pulled from VIPS and ECM WF. Nuru app also provides satellite data information with smiley faces to researchers, extension officers, and anybody in the research field with information concerning the fields, about the patterns, be it planting pattern and also rainfall pattern on the previous years. So it also helps you to monitor the patterns in your field.
The climate crisis is disproportionately affecting small farmers who live in rural areas around the world. And to better understand why it's so important for us to invent and deploy moonshot solutions to help farmers and to help ourselves avoid a climate crisis, it's almost easier to explore what happens if we don't. So last year, from June to September, according to 60 decibels, about 90% of farmers in Kenya lost incomes. And in the past decade, several countries have experienced regime change or armed conflict due in part to farming related unrest. Syria, Egypt, Morocco, Haiti, just to name a few. By helping farmers grow more food and create incomes in the rural areas, we not only help them create sovereignty for themselves and their communities, but we also help create more stability in areas because we can avoid climate refugees or climate migrants. Helping farmers grow more food may also help us avoid Africa spending what is projected to be 110 billion US dollars importing food by 2030. And even without all of that, smallholder farmers are the poorest people in the world. So giving them the tools to be able to support themselves during a climate crisis is lifting the largest group of people living in poverty out of poverty. At Sun Culture, we develop and commercialize what we call life-changing technologies to solve the biggest daily challenges of smallholder farmers. And these challenges are getting larger and larger as the unpredictability and unreliability of the weather becomes more unpredictable and more unreliable. Now, we did a survey of our customers at the same time that 60 decibels did a survey last year. And over 80% of our customers reported making money during the pandemic, and 95% reported improving their quality of life. Imagine that. During the worst period of their lives, 95% of our customers reported improving their quality of life. Now, this isn't just important for themselves and their communities, but it's important for the entire world. Solar-powered irrigation is a proven technology that works. It helps create sovereignty in rural areas. It helps increase incomes. It does so in a clean way, and it helps combat what is a climate crisis. My Moonshot technology is not necessarily a new technology, but my Moonshot idea is let's get this technology into the hands of millions of farmers across Kenya and across Africa. To do that, we have to make things more affordable. So for the policymakers listening in, we need to remove the tax on solar irrigation. By removing the tax on solar irrigation, we're able to reduce our prices by 26%, increasing our addressable market by 150%. And for all the funders listening in, we need a $100 million solar irrigation subsidy facility in Kenya. This can solve food insecurity. This can help keep folks wealthy in the rural areas, and this can avert what Bill Gates calls a climate disaster. Thank you. and I look forward to working with you.
Hello everyone, my name is Adit Murthy and I am the founder and CEO of Conservator Technologies, where we use satellites and AI to help farmers to grow more with less and also substantially increase their incomes to the carbon that their soil stores, all without using any sensors or hardware or soil sampling. We use over 100 satellites throughout the entire electromagnetic spectrum, all the way from ultraviolet to radar, combined together with our own proprietary AIs to measure several actionable insights about farmland. Things such as soil moisture, nutrient levels, soil carbon levels, all to a 10-meter resolution. It's like having a sensor every 10 meters, but without any of the hardware or soil sampling, and even to a 30-centimeter depth to within the earth. And by using this information, we're able to help smallholder farmers, especially smallholders, with our technology to achieve dramatic scale and efficiency. Using our soil moisture and nutrient insights, we're able to help them to grow more with less and sustainably increase their soil fertility. And using our soil carbon, we're able to unlock carbon credits at scale. Many corporations and governments throughout the world are looking for low-cost carbon removal solutions in order to reduce their own net carbon emissions. And farmers around the world, especially small farmers in developing countries, hold the keys to doing it quite efficiently through just small changes that they can do to their practices. So by increasing their soil carbon, they are not only increasing their soil's fertility, enabling them to grow more in the future, but we are also able to turn that into carbon credits by measuring soil carbon levels now, next year, the following year, and so on, quantifying those changes, and we are able to certify those changes to international standards, turning them into commodified carbon credits, which we are then able to sell at scale as well around the world, and thus increase small farmers' income substantially by anywhere from between 20% to 100% increase in their income quite directly from the payments that come from the carbon credits that we are able to sell from the hard work they do to increase their soil carbon and increase their farm's fertility. Today we have millions of acres around the world generating carbon credits that we are certifying and selling to a variety of different players, including even Fortune 100 companies in spaces as diverse as healthcare to IT. So there's all sorts of buyers for this. There's a large amount of land around the world that small farmers can really turn into carbon credit generation at scale. And now we continue to look for more partners to scale this. Everything that happens with small farmers through us, we often work through partners on the ground. So we're always looking for folks to work with us to take this to the next level. Are you working on sustainable agriculture today with a large number of farmers, or do you aspire to do so in the near future? Please reach out and let's work together to enable farmers worldwide to fight back against climate change and be part of the solution to keeping this planet pristine. Thank you.
The environmental pressure on farming around the world is ever increasing. We are asked repeatedly how are we monitoring the water we use, the herbicides and fungicides and fertilizers that we apply. How effective are they and how could we make their application more effective?
The customer who is buying our roses has to be sure that whatever we grow is grown in an environment that is friendly and where people are safe to work. The way to achieve that is to practice what we call integrated pest management.
Farmers in today's age are facing ever-increasing pressure, not only from national regulators in the country that they operate, but also from the customers that they sell to. Working with integrated pest management businesses like Dudutech becomes ever important. You are trying to combine the smallest amount of chemical use with the largest amount of biological use, and this is what we call integrated pest management. Dudutech is Africa's leader in integrated pest management with a wealth of experience in designing and delivering biological pest control solutions developed by growers for growers. We research, develop and supply zero-residue biological control products for environmentally and socially intelligent farming. We are working with farmers to understand what the challenges are today and what the challenges will be tomorrow. And at Dudutech, that's what forms the heart of our research and development strategy. As farmers, we believe that successful pest control is more than products. It is a philosophy of growing that is supported by a number of crop management techniques, physical interventions, and biological control. Our team of research and development scientists in Kenya work daily with our growers in order to provide relevant solutions that provide a clear alternative to the harmful chemicals that we've used in the past.
The concept of IPM as a business model to us is to work towards self-sustainability, because it will give us a longer crop life, a healthier crop life, and a better product which will fetch better prices for us.
By using IPM and using insects and fungal products, the moment that we need to use chemicals, they work better because it's the first time use.
When a farmer is working with us, they have most of their challenges covered by our products. We've got a wide portfolio of products to target key pests and diseases that farmers are facing. They have access to the best technical support team.
They can supply you fast. We have one of the people who comes by on a frequent, so they have a very close contact on what needs to be done, so we can step and move quite fast.
Dudutech has invested heavily in its production capabilities, not only to be able to deliver consistent year-round production, but also to ensure the quality of the product meets the farmer's needs. Today, Dudutech has the largest biological production facility in sub-Saharan Africa, employing over 250 full-time staff, amongst them experienced agronomists, doctorate and master's level scientists. Our large-scale production facilities provide for both macrobiological and microbiological solutions for farmers across the world. At Dudutech, we believe that integrated pest management will be the future of farming. We are trying to equip farmers with solutions that are economically and technically viable, ensuring the farmer will be able to suppress disease and pestilence to ensure the highest possible harvest. We are positioning Dudutech to help farmers face the future.
It is not only the future, it's already here. Less use of chemicals is less stress within your product. And that's what we are trying to achieve. From day one in Kenya, we have believed it's the better way to grow.
We're very proud to be with them, because what actually it means is that our product going into Europe, everyone understands that we are looking after our crop in the very best possible way. And Dudutech's brand has grown to such that it is recognized all over the world.
They are not just suppliers for us. They are not just product marketers for us. They are partners in our growing cycle.
Across tropical Africa, intense rainfall events are disruptive and damaging to agriculture and can be especially devastating for smallholder farmers. An unanticipated storm could ruin a crop left out to dry. Unexpectedly heavy rainfall could disrupt the transport of produce to market.
Climate change is projecting that there will be an increase in the intensity and frequency of storms. That's what everybody is concerned about. Having that information means we should do something about it.
Numerical weather models to predict these events are constantly evolving and improving, but the skill of these models for the prediction of high-impact rainfall events remains fairly low across tropical Africa. Real-time observations to visualize and monitor high-impact rainfall events can provide more accurate information. Observations can even be used to make an estimation of a storm path over the next few hours. This is nowcasting and is the latest frontier in weather prediction in tropical Africa. While some countries have the luxury of radars for monitoring ongoing storms, many in the developing world do not. Through the Global Challenges Research Fund, African SWIFT project, scientists have instead been investigating and applying the use of satellite images for nowcasting over Africa, and this has been done with great success.
Satellite is an important resource. The satellites above Africa are very high quality, some of the best in the world, and they produce an enormous amount of data which hasn't really been exploited as fully as it can be to get information to people.
So FASTER, the Forecasting African Storms application, based at the University of Leeds, is taking cutting-edge research from the SWIFT project and transforming it into a practical solution. By extracting information from satellite data provided by UMETSAT, FASTER will make nowcasting information available via an Application Programming Interface, or API. We will now demonstrate our beta version of the API. Here we have the rapidly developing thunderstorm product, which outlines storm objects identified by the UMETSAT NWC-SAF algorithm. Given the user's location, storm objects within a given radius are retrieved from the FASTER database. The colours show whether the storms have been categorised as growing, mature or decaying. We can also see the previous storm track in grey and a projected path 1.5 hours into the future in black. The convective rainfall rate product gives an estimate of rainfall rate associated with storm regions. For both products, data is available in near real time every 15 minutes, and previous time steps can be viewed by adjusting the slider or by playing the animation. Future projections of storm motion can also be viewed. The way in which the storm data is stored in the FASTER database allows for high flexibility in its display and utility. One example is the ability for push alerts if a storm is projected to reach the user.
For small-scale farmers, the improved accuracy of this information relative to 24 to 48-hour forecasts could have huge impacts. Warning of an approaching storm could provide time to cover crops left to dry before the rain arrives. They could delay the spraying of pesticides to prevent the expensive chemicals being washed away. Also, they could adjust the transportation schedule to avoid disruption on the roads.
We are pleased to begin piloting this project in Kenya in partnership with the Kenya Meteorological Department. The ubiquitous availability of satellite data means that FASTER could be made available anywhere in tropical Africa or even further afield. FASTER is keen to partner with African initiatives to explore the utility of nowcasting and harness the data in the most impactful way.
Good afternoon, my name is Alexi, and today I'll be speaking to you about cloud agronomics and how we see ourselves enabling growers across the globe to participate in the effort of mitigating the effects of climate change. At our core, we are focused on scaling lab-grade analysis to provide a deeper understanding of agricultural performance. The basis of these insights is a technology called hyperspectral imaging. Originally used by NASA to study the composition of other planets, this technology has been widely implemented in universities and laboratories across the world. However, the complexity and cost associated with it has meant its use has been restricted. By miniaturizing and adopting this proven technology, we have enabled its application to the greater agricultural sector. If we take a step back, we can see that there has been a shift in consumer, corporate, and legislative focus towards addressing the consequences of how food is produced today. With that, agricultural farmland has the potential to sequester billions of tons of carbon dioxide through the implementation of simple changes in growing practices, and now there is capital to support this effort. The blocker to establishing a system by which growers can get paid for pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and restoring land health in the process has been a lack of a cost-effective way to measure the change in soil carbon. By measuring soil carbon directly from the air, we enable growers to set baselines for pennies on the dollar. As this is the currently single largest barrier for farmers to participate in carbon sequestration programs, this development paves the way for them to begin transitioning how they grow food. Farmers can expect $20 to $30 per acre in additional income per year. In the context of smallholder farmers, this increase in income is very substantial. One of our partners has actually been responsible for creating the highest incomes from open land and biodiversity in Africa. And in the end, by diversifying the farmers' source of income, we establish trust and confidence in them to help with the collective effort of reducing the planet's net greenhouse gas emissions, all while preserving their heritage. Looking at the entire chain of events from planting to consumption, we see ourselves as increasing transparency and establishing accountability in food production. From a farmer's perspective, independent verification of their effort on their land and surrounding environment provides opportunity to increase their bottom line. However, food producers and distributors benefit too. sourcing raw produce from farms known to be implementing certain land management practices increases efficiency by guiding proactive sorting of grain and simplifies the process for complying with ESG requirements. Finally, at the point of consumption, consumers can be confident their desires for nutritious and sustainably sourced meals have been met. Now, putting all this together, we empower policymakers, farmers, and other stakeholders in agriculture to transform how we grow our food today. By providing policymakers with a deeper understanding of the state of agriculture within their borders, we equip them to establish incentive structures for preservation of natural assets, increased food security, and compliance with the international sustainability targets. We've been fortunate to secure partners on the ground in Eastern Africa and are collaborating with the private sector and legislators to establish remote sensing as a methodology for verifying the scale of implementation and respective outcomes of sustainable farming practices. As a result of this work, farmers for the first time have the opportunity to receive payment on an individualized basis for sustainable farming. This not only rebalances the value chain toward the farmer, but also enables policymakers and market-facing enterprises to target these programs towards certain demographics in the hopes of supporting social initiatives, such as bridging the gender pay gap. Lastly, our team has collectively spent years working on projects within the context of emerging markets. We fully support the notion that organizations such as Mercy Corps Agrifin are going to be instrumental in bringing positive change to communities across the globe. Thank you for having us.
Every day in Kenya, many smallholder farmers are losing money from farming by using the wrong farm inputs and techniques, which results in low crop yield. This is often because farmers don't have access to soil testing information. Just as you wouldn't walk into a chemist and guess the medicine you would need for a specific illness, farmers shouldn't purchase fertilizers from the agrovet blindly without the right information of what they need for their soil. Take the guesswork out of farming with the new AgVisor, a business-to-business mobile soil testing clinic that will help you increase your smallholder farmers' yields so you can meet market demand and digital partner training for your agronomists by our local soil experts. Buying correct inputs that are informed by the soil tests and advice from our trained specialists will lead to greater financial empowerment. Stop struggling with low smallholder farmer yields and start testing today. Sign up to become an AgVisor partner today and say goodbye to low yields.
Hi everyone, my name is Katie Reberg and I'm a manager at 60 Decibels, a tech-enabled impact measurement and customer research company. I think we've probably worked with some of you that are here today. I'm really excited to be participating in this session with all of you and really want to thank the Agrifin team for putting on such a great virtual event given the craziness of the world over the past year. As an impact measurement company, we are really excited to be included in this session with such a creative group of tech innovations. While we ourselves are not focused solely on climate smart agriculture, our low-cost, repeatable approach to impact measurement is designed to help innovations just like the ones you've heard today understand their current impact, their potential for impact, and ultimately make strategic decisions that catalyze a more climate smart agricultural sector. Our name, 60 decibels, refers to the average volume of human conversation. We believe end users, beneficiaries, and customers should be at the core of impact measurement, and our lean data approach helps companies, social enterprises, and organizations listen to their customers better. Over the past 6 years, we've developed a low-cost, repeatable, standardized approach to impact measurement, and our network of 750 plus researchers means we can speak to end users anywhere in the world in their local language. This infrastructure and our standard survey approach means we can get insightful data to companies in around 10 weeks. Relying on primarily phone surveys, sometimes online surveys and SMS, we gather both impact indicators and customer insights, providing our clients with genuine benchmarks of impact performance. These benchmarks enable a deeper understanding of impact and help inform better decision-making and data-led impact management. As a company, we are out to prove that impact measurement can be fast, efficient, and iterative. So what are we doing in this conversation about climate resilience? Why are we here today? Well, as those of you here today know, farmers around the world are on the front lines of the climate crisis. But despite this, Research on climate change and resiliency has really focused primarily on the macro level, disregarding the lived experiences of farmers on the ground. And we at 60 Decibels really want to change that. Through a standard set of climate-focused survey questions we've designed, we have been able to understand smallholder farmers' climate risk and resilience, and how access to the right products and services can help increase their resilience over time. This climate toolkit, as we call it, measures farmers' resilience based on data collected directly from them on 3 dimensions of resilience that we refer to as the 3 Rs. The first dimension is routines, and this refers to farmers' knowledge and application of sustainable farming and resource management behaviors. Resources, the second dimension, refers to farmers' access to knowledge and tools that would help them cope and adapt to climate shocks. And recovery, the third dimension, refers to farmers' ability to predict when a climate shock will occur, and also their financial ability and well-being to withstand and overcome this shock. We think this standardized approach has 2 key benefits when it comes to the evolution of climate-smart agriculture. First, by standardizing these indicators across projects, we've been able to develop a comparable benchmark across geographies, subsectors, and business types. Having focused on climate change at a macro level, the sector has a pretty good understanding of what successful climate mitigation looks like at that high level. But to understand the success of these new climate-smart innovations targeted at small-scale farmers, we're going to need a new understanding of success and new performance benchmarks to compare ourselves against. Second, by using low-cost mobile technologies, we're able to deploy these surveys quickly and cost-effectively, gathering and analyzing impact data in just a matter of weeks. What this means is that surveys can be deployed multiple times a year, allowing for a more nuanced understanding of farmers' resilience across time and at different points in the agricultural season. Given the seasonality of farmers' incomes, having the ability to measure farmers' climate risk and resilience over time is going to be key to designing products, services, and interventions that fit farmers' various needs at various points in time. While our technology is not solely focused on climate-smart agriculture, we do see ourselves as complementary to the incredible work our peers are doing in this space. The data we're gathering is a resource for practitioners and stakeholders in the sector to better understand access, usage, and barriers to these climate innovations, with the ultimate goal being to increase the impact of these innovations by understanding and meeting the needs of farmers on the ground. Thanks so much for listening and for this opportunity. I'm excited to answer any questions you all may have on our products, services, and how we carry out our work. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you so much to all of our presenters for what I thought was an excellent overview and snapshot of just some of the technologies that are being deployed quite successfully already to tackle climate change with smallholder farmers. I think we've just seen cases of improved weather information services from FASTER, some innovations around soil carbon measurement with farmers, integrated pest management, new products to support climate smart crops like cassava, and new ways of measuring impact with smallholder farmers in the digital climate smart agriculture realm, which is a very new space to be operating in for 60 decibels. And I think for me personally, it gives me great comfort and excitement to see so many wonderful entrepreneurs and leaders tackling these issues and innovating on the ground with these sorts of technologies and digital solutions. Anyway, that's enough probably from me. So we're going to go straight into questions and introductions from various of the presenters. Some of the presenters couldn't make this Q&A session, so you will only see a few of them. But before I hand over to my colleague Victoria, who's going to handle the public Q&A, which is hopefully coming in thick and fast from the audience out there. We hope there are lots of questions about the technologies, what people are up to. I would like to ask a question to the group, and I'll start with Plant Village, just so you guys can get yourselves ready. What does the future look like for digital climate smart agriculture technology from your perspective? How do you see these new tools and services and how you're working with that with smallholder farmers?
Thanks very much, Sean. I think you've really framed it nicely by talking about the stresses we've had in the last 30 years, and these are not going away. The world truly is on fire, as Greta Thunberg says. And if it's on fire, then we need a fire response. We wouldn't countenance a response in a city where only 10, 20% of the population of that city had access to fire engines, because fire by its very nature spreads and the stresses of climate change spread. So one of the critically important points to recognize is that technology is not the rate limiting step. It's the will and the interest to roll it out at scale. And scale means hundreds of millions of farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. As you correctly pointed out, 95% of them lack irrigation. And you cannot cope with climate change in the absence of irrigation or knowledge. And we've heard from a number of examples here, both in terms of irrigation and forewarning, nowcasting, and so on and so forth. So we need to really think of this as a whole continent approach, not just a little part of Kenya approach, a whole continent, because the challenge is not Kenya, it's Chad or Nigeria or DRC and so on and so forth. And when we also think of moonshots, we also have to think of the necessary investment in that. When there was a moonshot back in the 60s, it was 4% of the budget of the US. Everybody wants a moonshot on a tiny budget, and that's just not how it works. Also, people want a moonshot on a sustainable business model. That's not how it works. Not when the target communities are less than $1.80 a day, as is the case in northern Kenya, Samburu, or Somalia, and so on and so forth. So technology is there, it's available, it can be scaled. We have the possibility to do that, but we really have to push aggressively on this, because thinking of a fire in a city, we can't have just a few individuals having access to firefighters. It has to be across the entire continent.
Thank you so much, David. Beth from Faster, I wonder if you would also like to answer the question about what's next for specifically weather forecasting for smallholder farmers. You pointed to storm warnings and short-term weather information. Do you see there being other additions to what you're doing with weather predictability for farmers right now as well?
Yes, I think there's two parts to that. Firstly, with what we're doing, we've got the satellite images, and using the information from satellites, we can also do this forward projection of the storms, but currently that's on a very short time scale. And although the information is more accurate than something you're going to get from a weather model, it is a very short time scale for someone to respond. So for us, the innovation that needs to be done is improving this forward propagation. And to do that, we're looking at things like machine learning and AI. I know that's very buzzwordy at the moment, but that could really provide a good solution for us. Also, new data sources, I mean, improvements to satellites, but also maybe crowdsourced data in the future. And then I guess the second part is, as I mentioned, the information from satellites is more accurate than weather models, but moving forward, we do want to improve weather models so that you can be getting good information on 24, 48, even longer timescales, so that you have these warnings for storms.
That's great. And we probably could do a whole session on satellites and Earth observation, as we have done in past ALEs, but this year, sadly, we've got a packed schedule. So on the topic of soil testing, Jeremy from CropNuts, I wonder also how you see soil measurement and soil testing. We've had a few examples of soil carbon measurement, for example, from Conserve Water and Cloud Agronomics, but from CropNuts' perspective, what does the future look like? Jeremy from CropNuts, can you hear us? Nope. Okay. Moving on to Adith from Conserve Water. Perhaps you could answer the question also, just, you know, as you are working on a very pioneering soil testing solution to some extent, using Earth observation to monitor soil carbon stocks and carbon sequestration.
I think Jeremy is back. So if you want to.
Oh, right.
All right.
Fantastic. Jeremy, are you there?
I am, finally. Hi,
Great.
John.
Hey, go ahead.
So yeah, from our perspective, obviously, you know, we're on the front line working with hundreds of thousands of smallholder farmers in different parts of Africa. Our approach is to use soil testing as the starting point for improving the farmer's yield. We know that if we can get the yields up by addressing issues like acidity and nutrition, we can get enough biomass into the system, then we can start to build up residue levels, which in turn, obviously becomes carbon over time. But for us, using soil testing as a technology to mitigate the risks through conservation farming and soil health is really where we're sort of focused on from the perspective of climate change.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions from the audience about that as well. So thank you, Jeremy. Adith, back to you.
Yeah. So I think my answer is probably similar to Jeremy's. Eventually, our answers will all just combine together as we have more conversations, and just become one answer. But I guess at this point in time, what we're trying to do is obviously we're trying to accelerate digital agriculture, of course, but we have to also understand like where the world is today. Like, of course, the adoption levels of smartphones and phones in general, flip phones in general is very high, and smartphones is getting up there slowly. But then, as of today, how we see that transition happening to digital is a hybrid kind of model. So, at maybe at some point, maybe possibly like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, everything is purely completely digital for all the smallholders. But that's not the case today. So we work through this is why we work through a series, several ground partners who are trying to implement various things on the ground, be it sustainable agriculture programs or all sorts of other programs. And we kind of adopt a hybrid model where there's a personal touch there that is present to the extent that is needed through the extension staff on the ground or whoever the ground partners. And then there's also the automated SMS, voice message, or it could also be using a smartphone app kind of interface. So it's a hybrid interface that all comes together to build a holistic solution, not just for the soil carbon component, but the soil carbon is how you build out the business model to generate lots of revenue, both for the farmer and to make this sustainable, but also the soil moisture and nutrient components that we provide. It's a holistic system. How do you both measure the impact, but also enable that impact? So you have to both enable that impact and measure that impact. So we're trying to bring all of those together and in a hybrid approach. And I feel that is the future here with how digital solutions are scaling, especially along all these lines. And slowly we reduce the need for hybrid until we become purely digital. But it might be 10 years. I'm not sure. I'm not going to comment and try to predict the future 10 years from now.
Great, thank you, Adith. Thank you so much. We're very excited about what you're doing, and I think cloud agronomics, Jay, if you can hear us, I know you're driving, so if you're not able to answer, that's fine. But if you're looking at aircraft to do something similar to Conso Water to improve the measurement of soil carbon and make it hyper localized and also more affordable. I wonder what the future looks like for cloud agronomics in the smallholder farmer context. I know you're working mostly in commercial agriculture right now, but developing that in Africa right now too. So over to you, Jay.
Yes, I mean, I would in part second what Adith was saying with respect to the partnership models. From our perspective, there are a few things that are really critical to advancing this process. One would be sort of multi-layered partnerships, both with respect to some of the commercial aspects, with respect to community and smallholder farmers, but also on the finance side of this, which I think is still an evolving space. The tech has advanced considerably over the last several years and continues to advance at a fairly rapid pace. The financing component of this, though, I don't know that's advancing at the same pace. And I think if we were to kind of fast forward a few years, as carbon markets evolve, whether voluntary or otherwise, the financing components, and the integration of other technologies like blockchain into these sort of financing models will be really, really critical. The other thing I would say, of course, is sort of data and how we use data, how we manage it, how we record it, and how we set precedent via those sort of data models. That's going to be really critical for us going forward as well. So I would say it's the partnership side, it's certainly the financing aspects, and then the data components.
Thank you, Jay, and I'm so glad you brought up data, because our last quick introduction is with Katie. If you could limit your answer to about 1 minute, because we're going to go straight into audience Q&A. We have a lot of great questions coming through. But Katie, yeah, data is super important. And how do we know if any of this is actually going to work for smallholder farmers, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think, what we're finding building out our climate resilience toolkit with smallholder farmers, which will be presented later on in this conference, so it won't take time. But I think what we're keen to understand is, what does resilience look like at the smallholder farmer level, right? I think we have a lot of great macro level data on countries that are at climate risk, right? And large swaths of land or large regions that are at risk, but we don't necessarily know what risk looks like on that individual level, or what really, whether it's access, financial access, technology access, what really kind of catalyzes a farmer to be resilient or cope with the shock. And so we're keen to partner with technologies like this to understand how, where a farmer's starting from, how do access to these technologies help farmers cope with shocks, predict shocks, change their behavior over time, and what does that change look like? And then what can we do to understand, I think I see in the chat a question about integrated models, right? Like, what happens when we start integrating technologies and tools, and what does bundling these technologies do to even increase that technology? And so we're excited to kind of speak to the smallholder farmer to understand how these Moonshot technologies are really helping on the ground.
Wonderful, thanks, Katie. Big topic to sum up in 60 seconds. Victoria, over to you for the public Q&A.
Great, yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And thanks to the audience for sharing your questions. I'll start with the last question we've just got in, actually, from Brandon at Apple. So he's directing this to Adith and Jay and others. And his question is, what information or data should we ultimately consider as free and non-commercial based on the current trajectory of these moonshots? And how should that affect our partnerships? If you want to see the question, they're also in the chat box for the panelists' benefit. Yeah, so Adith and Jay, any comments on that question in from Brandon Edwards at Apple?
Let me see if I understood your question correctly. I feel like there's two different interpretations that are popping up in my mind simultaneously. So are you, feel free to clarify in the chat, I guess, Brandon, are you referring to how do we easily evaluate these technologies themselves, or how do we evaluate the data that's coming out of these technologies that's free? Or what is the non-commercial component? If you would quickly clarify that. I guess Brandon is now here as on the panel here. So if you could clarify what you mean, that'd be helpful.
Go ahead, Brandon. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, we can't hear you too well. Could you speak up a little? Can you hear me now? No, we don't hear you, I'm afraid. Sorry. Maybe once you get your audio sorted, we can come back to this question. So let's just pause on that for a second and address one of the other questions. Thanks, Brandon. So a question in from Mayeda at the Center for Financial Inclusion. So she's asking, what are the various models to increase uptake of these technologies by the farmers, including field agents, farmer co-ops, etc.? What are the costs that farmers pay for using these different technologies? Or what are the costs paid by others, and if so, who? Right, who wants to tackle that one? I mean, I know Plant Village have a strong opinion on this, on who should pay. But if anybody else wants to share their model on how you price it for the smallholder farmers and field agents, please do share.
Yeah, I can answer that. So what we've done at CropNuts is basically brought down the cost of soil testing by using machine learning. So we've invested in an Africa-wide calibration of hundreds of thousands of samples to be able to then take this information to our partners, whether they're financial lenders or aggregators or input suppliers. So for the financial institutions that we're onboarding at the moment who are bundling soil testing into their loans, to be able to then make sure that that farmer has a prescription when they go to buy those inputs. Our price is in the region of, for this low cost soil test is in the region of $8 to $10. So really sort of slightly maybe higher than say crop insurance, but we see that if we can get this information in together with crop insurance as well, you're taking account of not only the climatic risks, but the soil risks as well. So once you pair weather with soil, you actually got a big de-risking sort of module within your risk or financing sort of product portfolio. So that's how we're approaching it.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's really helpful. I think that there was also a part of the question was looking at what are the various models to increase uptake. So if anybody has ideas around how they plan to, I guess it's a question of scale and getting more farmers using these various technologies. If anybody has something they'd like to share on that front, that would be interesting.
I suppose I could jump in there. So our model is to work with existing systems at scale. So we're in partnership with MEDI who do Shamba Shape Up and iShamba. So we're taking these hyperlocal measurements on weather and soil and pest alerts, and we're sending that to about 500,000 farmers a week through their system. And we want the partnership with Calro and the 1 Million Farmer Group. And so having built a background system, it then is very economical through economies of scale to add that to existing partners who front face with farmers. In addition, there's a TV program that they do very successfully for 12 years now, and that reaches about 9 million people through messages as well as practical approaches and showing people how other farmers do it. And that's very, very successful. And what I really like about Shamba Shape Up is that they've been in operation for 12 years. They have a lot of people who pay for advertising on their show, for example, CJR, World Food Program, or Do the Tech, or whatever is the case. And I think that's a really excellent model. So we see ourselves on the back end as a platform to enable the scaling across multiple existing partners. And the really challenging part is getting people on board. So we do use our Dream Team model, which is about $15 a day for a young person who's graduated from a university in Kenya. They're really, really excellent. They gain enormous trust in the community, and they work with predominantly small groups of farmers led by women. It's about 83% of women. And so in this case, we're able to build that trust. And what we find is a large spread of the organic content that Plant Village does across counties at this stage. And so, you know, the greatest, to my mind, one of the greatest aspects about working in Africa is the enormous social capital that's there, and leveraging the power of these young people to spread, as well as the farmer groups as well. And that's excellent. It's just a lot of footwork. It has to be paid for, and I don't see a sustainable business model there.
Yeah, if I may. Yeah, sure. Yeah, if I may just add something quickly here. I think David gave a quite expansive answer. But in combination to the things that David said, in our case, we actually pay the farmers eventually to do the things. And with some financing models, they might even get an initial payment for adopting a certain practice. So once you're paying the farmers, the incentive is skewed, and then it becomes slight bit more efficient for you to get that momentum going faster once you have some initial quorum. Like in Africa, I guess we don't have that quorum yet. We're trying to get there, but in some other parts of the world, we are in that scenario. Like once things are rolling, and once you're paying farmers to do things, there's the chain effects.
And I was just going to piggyback on to what David said, and what we're seeing, you know, in our interviews and conversations with farmers is exactly what David just said, that social capital, right? I think there's obviously a barrier in terms of just awareness of these technologies, but there's also this barrier in terms of usability or a barrier between kind of knowledge of how to use it or user experience. And so what we find is often technologies and companies that have, you know, really great customer service, some, you know, a hotline or a channel where farmers can ask questions, or, you know, if they have a challenge, can overcome that challenge quickly. We find that those are the technologies that often have the highest impact and also have the highest rate of farmers like sticking with the technology and staying, you know, part of that company. And so I would say, you know, it's not the massive scale that you're talking about when we're talking about like across a country, but for a company, I think really investing in that ground level customer service is really important for catalyzing that impact.
Thank you. I think another interesting question that's come in from Kimberly, who's at Case at Duke. She's asking, how can these solutions ultimately be shared with and used by smallholder farmers in a streamlined and integrated way? I wonder if the kind of innovators on the panel can respond to that and kind of answer whether you've thought about that as part of your business strategy around, you know, having these technologies available to smallholder farmers in, as Kimberly said, a streamlined, integrated way, whether you have some thoughts on that. Jump in, anybody who's got the answers.
I guess I can say something about Faster. So we are trying to go in partnership with, we're starting out in Kenya, and we're trying to go in partnership with the Kenya Meteorological Department. So hopefully everyone in Kenya, you know, is aware of Kenya Meteorological Department and trust them. So we would be pushing out information through them and trying to build partnerships through them. And also building on what Katie mentioned earlier about bundling. So the way we're building Faster, it can be its own app. And I think we would introduce an initial free app with Kenya Meteorological Department. But in terms of more bespoke information for commercial customers, that would be through an API. So any other kind of technology could interface with our API and get the information they need, and then they already have a platform to get that information out, and we can take advantage of that, hopefully.
Okay, I'm going to have to jump in here because we're about at time, and there are so many interesting conversations to be had, so many great questions coming through. We're going to endeavor to answer those questions. You'll see in the platform, the event platform, that you can chat with these organizations. There's a marketplace where many of them are featured. And so I know we didn't get to every topic that we could in the session, but I'm sure most of your answers, if not all, could be found on our platform and through our team. So thank you so much to all of you innovators. You've done an amazing job explaining in a very short space of time all of the things you're doing to tackle climate change and the technology you're successfully implementing already. I'd just like to urge everyone to take the survey for the session. I'll also just let you know that the next session immediately after this for our annual learning event is about farmer impact and all of the impact many of the organizations here and many others have had in delivering digital solutions to smallholder farmers. So please do stick around for that on the agenda tab of the platform. But without saying any more, I'll just say thank you so much to everyone, and AgriFin's really excited to work with you all, and thanks for attending today, those of you out there. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for having us.